Hey everyone, what's going on? Mark here from TST Industries, back in the garage, and in this video I will be showing you how to install rear LED pod turn signals on your all-new 2024 Yamaha MT-09. Now in this video I will be going over mounting 3 different signaling options in 2 different locations while using our TST Elite 1 Fender Eliminator systems. And I should preface this all by saying, with the removal of your OEM Fender, you do lose your OEM turn signals and your OEM license plate light. In our Fender Eliminator video, Bart guides you through the installation of our universal license plate light and mentions these signaling options. In this video, I will only be showing you how to install the signals onto the respective brackets we offer. So if you want to see the full Fender Eliminator videos, please be sure to reference those in the description below or on our YouTube channel. Now in this video, we will be going over 3 signaling options as I mentioned. We will show you how to reuse your OEM turn signals in our high mount options using our OEM turn signal bracket. We will also show you how to install external LED pod turn signals like our Mech Evo pod turn signals in the fixed high mount and the adjustable high mount Fender Eliminator options. And lastly, we will show you how to install LED pod turn signals, specifically our Echo pod turn signals with the fixed low mount bracket. Now with each of these installations, I will have a little disclaimer or two that is very important to note, such as with our low mount bracket, we are only offering the Echo pod turn signals due to sizing limitations with your passenger pegs. But if you are not using your passenger pegs or never have a passenger, you can in theory use any of our pod turn signals. And I should also mention, this is an installation guide. The processes shown in this video should carry over for any pod turn signal on the market, but will definitely work for any of our offerings. Please, as a conscious shopper, do your own research, read your product pages, and fully understand what you are purchasing before you hit add to cart and check out. All of these products are sold as modular components, so you are only stuck paying for what you want and what you need, and you are not stuck paying for things you may not use. Now, all of these processes are very straightforward, and we will begin with showing you how to remove your OEM turn signals from your OEM Fender. So without further ado, let's go ahead and jump right in. So to begin this process, we have our OEM Fender here, and we also have our adjustable Fender Eliminator with our OEM turn signal bracket off to the side. We're going to focus on the OEM Fender, and we need to gain access to route these wires out from this captive holder and then free them from the actual Fender. We will do this by removing these 4 bolts located at the top of the Fender with a 5mm hex key Allen key T-handle. And I do believe Yamaha applies a little bit of thread lock. There are these spacers on the bolts and in the wells. So if you're taking this apart, I'm assuming you're never going to use it again. Just be aware there is hardware that may fall out. So with those 4 bolts removed, we're going to take a look at this Fender from the underside. And we have a fastener here that is just like a post locked into this aluminum frame, and then we have one on each side. The easiest way to disassemble this is to pry outward and then gently push down towards this post and then outward. And you can see just like that, we now have freed the wires, and if we flip it over, you can get an even better look at what's happening here. Let's go ahead and remove the arms. Now we can see here, when looking at the signals and their mounting points, they are very similar to the front signals found on all modern Yamahas, where they don't have hardware fastening the signals in place. It is a rubber keeper along with a plastic locking tab. So what we are going to do with a small flathead screwdriver or a small tool is pry outward on this rubber seal, like so, and then outward on the plastic keeper. And just to give you a better look, we're focusing here. We're going to pry outward and then up. And that actually frees the signal to the point where if you apply a little bit of pressure, you actually free it from its mounting point. We'll show you again on this side. We have our plastic keyed keeper released, and we're going to just gently pry outward. And just like that, your signal is now free. Now, if you're Mr. All Thumbs, you have two left hands, you have big mitts, you really can't work in these tight spaces, you can remove these 4 Phillips head screws, and that will give you even more access. And these are just self-threading plastite screws, similar to what we use in some of our assemblies. And then you can remove this inner frame, toss it to the side, and now you truly have full access. This should allow anybody and everybody to reroute your OEM signal wires and remove them without issues. 1 and 2. The last wire left behind is your OEM license plate light. So now we can go ahead, toss this entire Fender assembly to the side, and now we can focus on what is in front of us. So here we have our adjustable Fender Eliminator and the necessary hardware to mount your OEM signal bracket and your OEM signals. And if you're looking at the Fender Eliminator, you can see here, it should read with the TST logo left to right. This bracket will actually sit on top of the standoff hinges, like so. And then your signals will mount to here. So now we'll go ahead, grab one of the signals. These signals are not side specific, but they are color specific. And what I mean by that is one turn signal has a black connector and the other one has a white connector. Meaning, if you install them incorrectly, you may end up in a situation where you have to connect the black connector to the white one on the OEM side and white to black on the OEM side. But just to keep this in mind, if you are reusing your OEM signals, you're watching this part of the video, the turn signal with the black connector is actually the left turn signal, and the turn signal with the right connector, or with the white connector, is the right turn signal. Now, when it comes time to mounting them onto our OEM turn signal bracket, you do have 2 options. You can see here, what I meant when I was saying that is you can go this way, or you can flip it this way, and it'll work. But you also have the option of removing this spacer that's located inward on the OEM turn signal. Now, if you leave it as such, it will mount just like this, and you can kind of visualize this is what it will look like. But if you want something a little bit more low profile, a little bit slimmer, and it seems to be a little less floppy, you can actually remove this larger spacer by prying outward on it. It's very, very flexible, and we'll just route it out of the wire and the connector out of it. And then we can remove this white spacer. And we've actually shaved off about 1.5 inches from your OEM turn signal assembly, bringing them in a little bit more. So if you're looking for something a little bit more streamlined, but you do want to use your OEM turn signals, this is a nice medium for that application. Now, when it comes to mounting them onto our turn signal bracket, I'm actually going to show this process. This seems to be the most common application that we've seen over the years. So with it like such, we are going to grab our turn signal bracket, snake the connector through, and then the wire. And without the keyed tab in place, we're going to flex the base of the signal. It might be easier if you go larger side first, but you're gonna just flex it and then you can either grab a small flathead screwdriver. If you have enough patience, you can actually do it by hand. But if not, we'll show you a real easy way. There we are. And it's actually very, very sturdy in there. And now to lock it in place, we will actually position the keyed locking tab into its designated place. Make sure that the rubber tabs on the side fold over onto the plastic locking tab. And just like that, your signal is now locked in place. We'll repeat these steps for the opposite side signal. And just like that, your OEM turn signals are now secured onto our OEM turn signal bracket. Now, when it comes time to mounting it onto the bike, we do provide longer bolts with our OEM turn signal bracket. These bolts will drop down from the inside of the bike through our undertail closeouts that we currently have installed. And then they will drop through the turn signal bracket and into our standoff hinges. So you can visualize what that would look like. I'm just going to catch a few threads here, nothing too crazy. But this would be the finished look once it is secured to our undertail closeouts. Now we're going to go ahead and toss this to the side. Before we actually mount onto the bike, I do want to show you how to install our TST LED rear pod turn signal kits onto our adjustable bracket, and that process can actually be followed onto our standard bracket as well. So let's go ahead and jump right into that process. Now, we will be showing installation of our Mech Evo pod turn signals, but the process we are about to show can be used on any of our LED pod turn signal offerings, as well as with the standard fixed high mount bracket that we offer as well. So you can see here we have our signals, we have the adjustable bracket, and we have our pod signal mounting kit. We need to safely and securely lock these signals onto this bracket and then onto the Fender Eliminator bracket that will hold your license plate. Now, if we take this kit out of the bag, you can see here we have two 90-degree brackets, 6 washers, 2 bolts, and 2 locking nuts. What we are going to do now is mount our signals onto the bracket. And to do that, we will remove the locking nut and both of the washers, snake them all the way out and remove them. And we are actually going to retain the silver washer and the locking nut, and we will toss aside the black spacer. That is for application. If you desire, you can actually space off the signal a little bit from the bracket, like so. But if you're looking for a very flush look, you can actually get rid of that spacer, and you would effectively end with a look that is very flush, the signal body against the bracket. We include that spacer for a lot of front signal applications, or for those who are installing it on the rear and just want a little bit of spacing. Now, we have the nut and the washer tossed aside. We have our signal in hand. We will grab one of our 90-degree brackets. And you can see here, one side is longer with a slotted out hole, and the other side is shorter with a circular hole. We will focus on that side and insert our wires through there. Snake it all the way down to the bottom of the signal base, like so. And then reinsert the washer. And the locking nut. Now this is a 13mm locking nut, so you will need a 13mm wrench handy. And with this in place, we can just go ahead and thread it on. We don't want it extremely tight, but we do want it pretty secured on there, so it's not just flopping around. Once it's on the bike, you will actually want to loosen up the nut a little bit if you need to. That way you can adjust the angle. Just like that, we're now locked in place. And we're gonna toss the signal aside. I will show you how to secure the bracket to your license plate bracket. Now we have, as I mentioned, an assortment of washers, locking nuts, and the 2 bolts. We would recommend 1 washer and the bolt on the front side through, and then you can go ahead and place a washer on the back side of the signal, and then the locking nut. So why do we include 6 washers if we're only using 4 for this assembly? Well, if you want to space off the kit a little bit more, we include an extra washer. I will also mention that the finished look will look like this, but this bolt will actually hold your license plate to the bracket. So I'm giving you the visualization now, showing you how it assembles without the license plate blocking your viewing. But keep in mind, this bolt, washer, and nut assembly do actually secure your license plate to this bracket. So you will need to utilize that and make sure that you are engaged and locked in completely while doing this assembly. But if you want to go ahead and pre-install it now, get it on the bike, and then once you have it on the bike, just remove this bolt, 2 washers, and nut assembly to insert your license plate. You can do that. We will repeat the steps on the opposite side now. Now, to give you a visualization of what it looks like when your license plate is included, I have one here. We're going to follow those steps. So we're going to take the bolt and 1 washer, feed it through the front of your license plate, through the license plate bracket, and then we will put the signal bracket on, 1 of the washers, and then a locking nut. And you will end up with a finished look like that. Now, if you do stack the washers, you might have a little bit more clearance, but that is what you need to achieve. So now that you've seen it without the license plate involved and with it involved, I'm actually going to very quickly feed this through the license plate, show you how easy it is. Now we have our assembly secured onto our plate bracket. The angles of the signals may be off, the angles of the 90-degree signal mount brackets may be off. This will be entirely up to you to decide how you want things to sit. But please note, at the end of this installation, you do want to make sure you tighten everything down accordingly. You want your signals facing the rear. You don't want them facing downward or inward. You want your brackets pretty much perpendicular at a 90-degree angle to your plate frame, not like so. So again, this will ultimately come down to you and how you install this and assemble it. We are showing you the guidance, and it is up to you to execute. Now, as you can see here on our LED pod turn signals, we do have bullet connectors. We do offer plug-and-play harness converters that will isolate the bullet connector terminals into an OEM-like connection. On these particular signals, we do have 3 wires. On many of our other pod turn signals, we only offer 2 wires, and that is only a signal circuit. These signals are a little different, and I wanted to highlight them because they do actually have a 3rd wire, the blue wire, and that can be used to splice into either your taillight running light or your taillight brake light function. So, in theory, if you wanted your signals to flash a brake light when you apply brakes. You would tap in this blue wire with our provided connection kit into your brake light wiring, and that would introduce that functionality. If you, on the other hand, wanted them to just be on all the time with a red running light for the running light function, you would do so with the provided running light connection kit and tap into the running light wire on your tail light. So two different options. We will show you how to do that once everything is wired up on the bike, but I did want to just highlight, please keep in mind that all of our pod turn signals come with bullet connectors by default. You will need plug and play harness converters to obtain plug and play functionality when connecting to your bike. Now, we have two signal assemblies configured for the high mount bracket on the rear of your MT-09. We are actually going to toss these both to the side now and bring into frame the next most crucial component in all of this, which is our undertail closeout, the center closeout. So the undertail closeout assembly for the 4th generation MT-09 is unique. It does have a 3 closeout configuration, 2 of which actually block off the holes from which your OEM fender was removed from, and the center hole is actually where the turn signals and the OEM license plate light wiring are routed through. We have a closeout that is centered, made right here at our headquarters in the USA, and it covers up the hole left behind from removal of those wires. But if you look on the back side of this, you can see 3 pilot holes. And we designed that in a way so that you as a consumer and as a rider can easily know where to drill holes if you want to introduce certain functions in the high mount configuration. So as you can see here, we have a closeout with 1 hole right in the center. That is for use of just a license plate light. And the next one would be a closeout with 1 center hole and the 2 sides cut out, and that is for use with turn signals, whether OEM or aftermarket. Now, it will be up to you to decide what finish look you want and what you're going for. If you're going with the low mount fender eliminator option, you do not have to worry about modifying this closeout at all unless you are going with a low mount bracket and signals up high. Weird things can happen, it's up to you. But in this video, we will show you how to drill out the pilot holes for your turn signal wiring. Very, very simple. First, you do not want to drill on a table. You want to use a surface that you don't mind messing up. In this case, we have a piece of wood. If you have something with holes on it that you can use as a template, that works as well. We're going to grab our drill and with a 3/16 drill bit, begin drilling out the pilot holes for the turn signal cutouts. Like so. Now you have a hole in place, and you'll want to clean off any of this excess that you have drilled out, excess material. You have a hole drilled out where the pilot hole was. And now, with a blade or a box cutter, you can actually punch out the remaining material by following the lines. If you notch it just enough, it will actually just fall right out. Like so. And then you can take your blade or a deburring tool and just clean out. If you have a file, you can clean out some of this excess material as well. The choice is entirely yours. Again, a lot of this stuff, it will fall on you to execute and decide what finished look you want. I've mentioned that a few times. But more so, a lot of these surfaces are not seen once installed on the bike. These are hidden behind your fender eliminator. So you really don't need too big of a hole. If you're a perfectionist, you will spend quite a bit of time cleaning up and making sure things are right. But if you just want something that works, you can see here, without doing too much post-processing on the drilling and cutting out, we can still route our OEM turn signal wires through this center closeout. And these are much thicker than our turn signal wires on our turn signals. We'll repeat that step on the opposite side. So again, 3/16 drill bit on center for the pilot hole that we have. And we will just press down in these notches right here that we have on the side. And as long as the gap again is wide enough and large enough to route your wiring, which it is, you are all good to go. Now, all of that is completed, we can actually go ahead and mount your respective Fender Eliminator options and signaling options onto the rear of the bike. Both of these are your high mount options. So we will show mounting this onto the bike, and then we will show you the easiest method of all, which is actually installing the low mount signaling options if you are running our low mount bracket. Now, they're not mutually exclusive. I mentioned briefly that if you want to run a low mount bracket with signals in the high mount option, you can do that in theory using specific bolts and nuts. Or if you want to run a high mount option with the low mount signals, you can do that as well with no additional hardware except for these signal mounts. So we're going to get these on the bike, show both finished looks, and then we will show you how to install the low mount LED pod turn signals. So here we are with the tail fairings disassembled. We show this process in our Fender Eliminator video, but to give you a more clear view of what we're doing here, I am going to remove the tail light. Now, this is not necessary for this installation. If you want to do it, that's fine. But I just want to give you a very clear view of what is happening here. So we will remove these two bolts on top. These are our 5mm hex key or Allen key. And then we have these two push pins underneath. Now we will push inward towards the front of the bike, releasing the tail light. And we're just going to flip it up to give you clear access. So at this point, I'm going to let this hang with the bottom mounts inserted to give you a clear view of what's happening here. We cannot remove this. We do not want to remove this. We will need this undershroud in place. We'll go ahead and grab our assembly for the OEM turn signals with our adjustable Fender Eliminator, along with the appropriate bolts. And what we're going to do is feed the wires through here first and just pull them up. And now we will go ahead and insert the bolts that were provided through our closeout pieces, like so. And now these bolts will go through the OEM signal bracket and into our standoff hinges. And we're only doing this to catch a few threads. We're not going to tighten down, so please keep that in mind as you're performing these steps. We just want some security in place as we're performing this. All right. So now everything's in place as it should be. We can now go ahead and grab our closeout piece from the center. And you can see here we have our wires routed through. And we will carefully insert the closeout piece so that the wires go in through the channels that we pre-drilled. And we do show the installation of this center closeout piece in our Fender Eliminator video. But if you're watching this video, you're probably putting in aftermarket signals. And the method we are showing here may be the easiest for most of you users out there. So you can see here, closeout piece is installed, wires are routed through. Now we can go ahead and secure this assembly in place. We will tighten each screw down little by little as to not skew the assembly and put strain on one bolt over another. This assembly is now secured onto the bike, and you can go ahead with the reassembly process, connecting these wires, routing them through the respective channel guide, reinstalling the OEM tail light and all of the tail fairings. But at this step, we're going to skip ahead to installing our TST LED rear pod turn signal kit with our adjustable bracket, showing that process, and then we will go ahead and install our low mount turn signals. Now the steps will be the same for our rear pod turn signal kit, but I am going to show you it down here just to give you a more clear angle in case you were a little confused. First, we will begin by inserting the bolts that we will be securing to the standoff hinges. Next, we will go ahead and route our wires through the center hole on this undertail. And next, we have our center undertail closeout. And again, side specific, we do show the full installation on our Fender Eliminator video, but we need to route the two wires through the respective channels, then into the undertail. It only installs one way, covers up the hole left behind. You can see that nice and clear. Fills the gap. And now we can just go ahead and continue snaking the wires through. You want to make sure you go behind the standoff hinges. And then we can tighten down these bolts. Same procedure, just with a different look and slightly different hardware. We have shorter bolts on this assembly that go into the standoff hinges. There we are. Now we're going to take our wires and route them through the channel guide located just behind where the tail light sits. There's a little routing guide there. And now we will reassemble the tail section, get to the connection just after showing how to install our low mount turn signals. So to begin this process, we need to turn our attention to the bolt that is located on the subframe just behind the passenger peg assembly. There is one bolt on this side, another on the opposite side in the respective place, and each bolt does have a washer on it. Now these bolts do not secure anything in place. I believe that they are there for potentially a future model that will be released or announced, or they're just there as a cosmetic placeholder. But nonetheless, they are there, so why not use them? These are a 5mm hex key, hex bit Allen key. We will break them loose and remove them and the respective washer that they have. Now, for the low mount turn signal kit, you are working with the same bracketry from the high mount kit, which is just a single 90-degree bracket. It's the same exact bracket. You have one longer side and a shorter side. We will be installing the longer side onto the bike facing outward. Bolt and washer go through the bracket and then go right back into the subframe. Now, we did install the slotted portion. So if you want to move it a little bit more inward, you can. If you want them more outward, you have about 1/2 inch to 3/4 inch of adjustment there. But we do need them facing directly outward, perpendicular to the orientation of the motorcycle. Want to make sure they're nice and secure. And now, it's important to note, and I mentioned it in the intro and I'll mention it again now, for the low mount signal system, we currently only offer our Echo pod turn signals. These are the lowest profile turn signals we have that are pod turn signals, and they will not interfere with the passenger foot peg assembly. So if you do carry a passenger, you won't have to worry about any sort of clearance issues. But in theory, if you don't carry a passenger, you can opt for any of our other turn signals by purchasing them separately, and you will be able to install them. So if this isn't really the look, but you want this placement for your rear signals, options are available. Please, please, please understand this disclaimer. If you do have a passenger, you may have interference with our other signaling offers or other signals on the market. With all that said, we're going to take our pod signal and snake the nut and washer off of the assembly. We will feed the wires through the bracket. Same steps as usual. Put the washer and the nut back on, and then begin securing your signal in place. Now this is a 13mm nut, so you can grab a 13mm wrench Now we're going to just about bottom them out. Ideally, you want to get them secure and then step away from your motorcycle and look at the angle of them. These are extremely bright signals when they are facing the right direction. So please keep that in mind. Now, when it comes down to wiring, you actually want to go inboard towards the front of the motorcycle. And there's a gap between the subframe and the sub tray. You can see my finger hanging out there. That is where we are going to route the wires for our turn signals. And you will actually be able to see them come up through the side, like so. And then we will continue upward into the tail section. This is very discreet wiring, and you can, at this point, route it towards the back around your relay box that you have here and some of the OEM electrical components, and that will give you full access to connecting it to our harness converters. So let's go ahead and repeat these steps on the opposite side, and then we'll come up top and show you the full connection procedure for low mount or high mount signals. So with our harness converters in hand, looking at our signals, you are going to go yellow to brown. Isolate that connection point using the pre-installed rubber sleeves on both ends. And then we will go red to black. Now, unfortunately, this is where you do have to use a little bit of your brain, as both of these turn signals came through the same side. I can kind of see that this one is the right turn signal. So let's go ahead and actually reverse this. So when I test it, you can see exactly what is going on here. So again, that's yellow to brown and black to red. And then we will connect to the white connector on the bike side connection point and test functionality. And you can see here, I do have a flashing yellow or amber signal light. But we do have a third wire, and we need to figure out what to do with that. Now, if you are a rider who purchased these signals and you want to enable the running light function, let's go ahead and tuck this away. We do have a running light connection kit. And that includes a very long blue wire and 2 posse tap connectors. What you can do at this point is pull that assembly out of the bag. Now, we need to connect this blue wire from the turn signals and tap into a powered source. Now, depending on the finished look you want, you can either have these signals turn on a red light when you apply brake, or you can wire them so that they have a constant running light like your tail light or like your license plate light. Now, if you want a constant running light, going to your license plate light would actually be a very easy connection point, and it would ensure that the light is always powered on when the bike is on. Tapping into the running light on your tail light would also be very easy, but this connector can be a little finicky. It's in a very tight spot. It's not easy to remove the connector from this captive hole that it's in, and you can disconnect it to give you some slack. So just keep that in mind. If you want to go ahead and have a functional external brake light on our signals, on our Mech Evo pod signals, you can take this blue wire and tap into the yellow wire on your taillight connection. But if you only want a running light wire, or a running light function, I should say, you can either tap into the blue wire on your taillight connection or the brown and red wire on your license plate light connection. So the choice is completely yours. I'm just here to guide you in the installation process and show you how to achieve certain end results. But with all that in mind, we do need to cut some of this wire off. So I think an appropriate amount to have, whether you want to go one way or the other, is a little under a foot. That would give you ample wiring so that you have slack. And you can see here, we can connect the bullet connectors on one end and isolate the terminals. And now we can either go to the license plate light connector or the tail light connector with ease. We have slack, we're not tied into any space. We have enough wiggle room to really hide these wires and clean it up once we're done. Now we will go ahead and strip off a little bit of the wiring. I like to go about 1/2 inch to 3/4 inch. That seems to give us a very good amount of contact, like so. And then what you will do is, with our posse tap in hand, this is included in the running light connection kit, you will remove the bottom section of the posse tap connector, feed the wiring through the hole, like so, and then connect it back onto the base. And you can give it a little tug, make sure it's locked in there. And now any power source that you connect to will enable that function. So just keep that in mind. With our Mech Evo pod turn signals in the red configuration, you will have a red light. Whether you connect to a running light or a brake light, that red light will appear upon that function being connected. And when you signal, the amber signal light will appear. So just to give you an idea of what that looks like, we are going to go ahead and connect to the brown and red wire on our license plate light connection. Just going to slip that on there like so, and then connect it on the opposite side. The piercing element will create a solid connection point, and when we test this, you can see here we have a red running light with the signal, and when you signal, the amber signal light turns on. Let's turn this off. And to give you an idea on the opposite option, let's go ahead and connect to the yellow wire on our tail light. And as I said, it is a very tight connection. So just keep that in mind. If you go with this routing, you may want to connect on this side, or if you follow it, you can see it's also a yellow wire on the bike side harness. So if you want to connect on that side, just follow the lead. And I have engaged contact. And now, if I power the bike on, I do not have a running light, but when I press the brakes, I now have an external brake light. And when I activate the signal, I still have a signal light. So really cool options. The choice is yours as a rider and as the person installing this. But there you have it. Now, whichever option you go with, you will have to repeat the steps for the other side signal. So if you started with the right one, now you will go ahead with the left turn signal. Same process. Yellow to brown, black to red, blue to constant running. Now, before you finalize any of this, just as we did on the low mount turn signals, we need to make sure that we isolate all of these connection points. The rubber sleeves are a very good method of protection, but I always like fail safes. So we will isolate one of the connectors on its own. Then we will do another with a longer piece of tape. Grab the secondary one. And if you would like, you can grab a third piece of tape and just bundle everything together. And it isolates your connections. You have a very clean assembly here now. You put the turn signal connectors back in their captive holders, and you can kind of just tuck everything off to the side like so. And voila, this installation is now complete. And just like that, you have successfully remounted turn signals onto the rear of your 2024 Yamaha MT-09 while using any of our Elite 1 Fender Eliminator options. So whether you're a rider who likes your signals up high in the stock location or tucked away down below, we have multiple options available for you. And with multiple signal choices available, you can get the desired look you want while retaining complete plug-and-play functionality. And if you're a rider who is interested in introducing a running or brake light circuit onto your external signals, we have solutions available for you in the format of our Mech Evo pod turn signals or our Quadrix turn signals. And we also have guided you through the process of even reinstalling your OEM turn signals. So if you found this video helpful, please be sure to give us a thumbs up. If you're interested in any of these products, you want to find out more details, cost, you're ready to hit buy, please be sure to visit our website, tstindustries.com. The link to these products can be found in the description below. And before you go, we urge you to please watch over our Fender Eliminator installation videos to see the full breakdown of how to remove your OEM Fender, removing all of your side panels, and installing any of our 3 Fender Eliminator configurations. Right now would be a perfect time, if you haven't already, to hit that subscribe button and turn the notification bell on to stay up to date with all the new and exciting videos we've got going on. And of course, you should always stop by our social media pages, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, all username TST Industries. For now, this has been Mark in the TST Garage, and we will catch you next time. Ride safe.